All right, let's get started. Today, we're totally reinventing how you think about the wheel. We see it as simple, obvious, just round. But the real story, it's this wild, mind-bending tale of engineering and chemistry that was anything but simple.
Okay, let's just jump right in with the big mystery, what some call the paradox of delay. Think about it. For thousands of years, our ancestors were doing incredible things, right? They were building these massive stone monuments. They were mastering how to smelt copper. And yet, the wheel, something that seems so basic to us, was nowhere to be found. Why is that?
Well, the answer, and this is really the key to this whole thing, is that the wheel wasn't just one object. It wasn't a single aha moment. It couldn't just pop into existence by itself. It was more like the final piece of a really complex puzzle, a whole technology package that needed a bunch of other breakthroughs to happen first.
So let's dig into this wheel paradox a little more. What was life actually like before wheels? Well, before about the 4th millennium BCE, getting stuff from A to B was all about sledges and pack animals. And honestly, for the kind of world they were living in, the dense forests of Europe or the marshy wetlands in Mesopotamia, a sledge was actually the smarter choice. It was stable, it could just glide over mud or grass. A clunky early wagon would have just sunk and gotten stuck.
So what had to change for the wheel to even make sense? That brings us to the real heart of the problem, a 3-part engineering nightmare. To make a working wheel, our ancestors had to solve 3 huge challenges all at the same time. This was the real roadblock. And here they are, the big 3. The friction problem, the material problem, and the power problem. You got to get through this gauntlet to turn a useless rolling log into a world-changing vehicle. Let's break them down one by one.
All right, first up, friction. Now here's the thing. The real genius of the wheel isn't the round part on the outside, it's the hole in the middle. That leap from a simple log roller where the whole thing is moving and creating friction to a wheel spinning on an axle, that was an incredible breakthrough. It concentrates all that friction into one tiny spot, the bearing. But that created a brand new and very hot problem.
Let's talk a little physics here. The friction coefficient for dry wood rubbing against dry wood is about 0.5. What does that mean? It means for a heavy cart, a mind-boggling half of the power your oxen are generating is just wasted, completely lost, fighting the friction in that hub. Without a solution, that axle would either grind itself into sawdust or, no joke, literally catch on fire.
So what was their solution? Something we could call the fat revolution. These Neolithic engineers basically became the world's first experts in friction. They figured out that animal fat, tallow, was the perfect lubricant. They even got so advanced they learned to mix it with lime and, without even knowing it, they created the world's first calcium-based grease. And this was only possible because they were already herding cattle on a massive scale. It all connects.
They also came up with 2 different competing designs. The oldest one is called the wheel set. This is where the wheels are locked to the axle, and the whole thing rotates together. It's simple, it's strong, but it has a huge flaw, what we call the differential problem. Basically, it's awful at turning corners. The other design, a fixed axle where the wheels spin on their own, is way better for maneuvering. And guess what? The oldest wheels we've ever found, like the famous Stara-Grab main wheel, they use that older, clunkier wheel set design. Okay, so they figured out friction. That brings us to our 3rd part, the Neolithic genius section, and the second massive challenge, the material problem. In other words, how on earth do you build a wheel that can take a beating and not just fall apart?
First, let's just bust the biggest myth right now. You just cannot make a good, durable wheel by slicing off a piece of a tree trunk. It just doesn't work. It's a complete fantasy.
And the reason why is this property called wood anisotropy. See, as wood dries, it shrinks differently depending on the direction of the grain. So a simple log slice would literally tear itself apart. It would develop these huge, deep cracks and be totally useless. The real solution was so much smarter.
They invented what's called the tripartite, or 3-part wheel. What they did was brilliant. They made it from 3 separate planks, making sure to align the wood grain in each one for maximum strength. Then they locked these pieces together, and not with glue. They used unbelievably precise joinery, driving these reinforcing battens into perfectly cut dovetail slots. This was the absolute peak of Neolithic woodworking. And these people were masters of material science. Just look at the Stara-Grab mine wheel. For the main disc, they chose ash wood. Why? Because it's tough but also elastic, so it won't shatter when you hit a rock. But for the axle, the part taking all the weight, they used oak because it has incredible strength and hardness. This wasn't a lucky guess. This was deep, practical knowledge of different types of wood.
Okay, so we've covered the how, but what about the where and the when? This is where things get really exciting, because recent discoveries have completely flipped the old story on its head.
For decades, everybody just assumed the transport wheel was a spin-off from the potter's wheel in Mesopotamia. I mean, it sounds logical, right? One wheel leads to another. Yeah, wrong. The timelines just don't match up, and more importantly, the physics are totally different. A potter's wheel is all about high speed and low weight. A wagon wheel is the complete opposite. They're not even related.
So a really compelling new theory from 2024 points to a totally different origin: Neolithic copper mines in Europe. The idea goes like this. Miners start by using simple log rollers to move heavy ore. But the crates keep slipping off, so what do? They carve grooves in the rollers to hold the crates in place. Then, to save weight and reduce friction, they keep deepening those grooves until, boom, they've accidentally sculpted the roller into a dumbbell shape, a thin axle on the middle with thick discs on the ends. And what is that? It's a functional wheel.
And this new theory is backed by some pretty solid archaeological evidence. You see, the oldest, most definitive proof of wheeled vehicles, it doesn't come from Mesopotamia at all. It comes from Europe. The Bronocice Pot in Poland has this super clear drawing of a wagon, and it's dated as far back as 3600 BCE. We have actual physical wagon tracks in Germany from around 3400 BCE. The pictograms from Mesopotamia, they show up later.
And just look at the detail in that pot. This isn't some clumsy first draft. It shows a wagon with 4 wheels and a special forked shaft to make it more stable. The takeaway here is huge. This was already a refined, sophisticated piece of tech, which strongly suggests that the real invention of the wheel is even older than the pot itself.
So with all this incredible engineering, you'd think the wheel would just take over the world overnight, right? But it didn't. And that leads us to our final section, an uneven revolution. The truth is, the wheel's adoption was actually pretty slow and patchy, because even the most brilliant invention has to be, practical.
I mean, think about it. A Neolithic wagon was a massive investment. You needed expert carpenters, you needed expensive metal tools, you needed tons of properly seasoned hardwood. It was a maintenance nightmare. It just guzzled animal fat for lubrication, and it was totally useless in mountains or dense forests or sandy deserts where a good old pack animal was way, way better. You really needed the right kind of infrastructure for it to even be worth the hassle. But there was one place on Earth that was absolutely perfect for the wheel. One environment that was basically a natural, ready-made highway system, the huge, wide-open grasslands of the Eurasian steppes.
And it's here that the wagon becomes a world-changing force. For the people of the Yamnai culture, it wasn't just a cart to haul stuff. It was a mobile home. It let them carry water, tents, and all their supplies deep into the grasslands, far away from rivers. This technology literally unlocked the entire steppe, and it fueled this massive expansion of people and their language all across Europe and Asia. This is where the wheel truly became a revolution. So from this incredibly complex engineering puzzle to a technology that literally changed the course of human history, the story of the wheel is just a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest things around us are actually the most profound. It really makes you wonder, what other everyday objects are we totally taking for granted? What other incredible stories of human genius are hiding in plain sight? Thanks for joining me.